ovarian cycle. Okay. So I talk about the endocrine pathway for the reproductive hormone. So remember I told you that hypothalamus, armpit, and ovary. And yes, they have negative feedback. So let's take a look here. Remember I told you that hypothalamus will secrete GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, to the armpit, anterior pituitary. When armpit receives GnRH, then what will happen? Armpit will secrete FSH and LH. FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone, LH stands for luteinizing hormone. Depending on the gender, if it is a female, then the follicle stimulating hormone, both of this hormone, we call it gonadotropin. Gonadotropin hormone. So these gonadotropin hormone, FSH and LH, they will go to the ovary, which is the gonad of female, and then FSH will cause oogenesis. Oogenesis. LH will cause the secretion of hormone like estrogen and progesterone. So well, this is what I just told you. Okay, for female menstrual cycle, we can study by ovarian cycle, uterine cycle, and hormonal cycle, and the average is 28 days. Ovarian cycle, well, it said 2 phases, but I split it into 3 phases. Okay, it's basically the same thing: follicular phase, and then a luteal phase, and then I put ovulation in between. And then uterine cycle, yes, 3 phases: menstruation, proliferative phase, and secretory phase. So you can see that in the they call this they divide like this. Okay. So for me, ovarian cycle is only this bottom panel, C3, and then this is the uterine cycle. Uterine cycle basically study the changes of the endometrium. Endometrium is like this is the endometrium. Endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus. So the thickness of the endometrium changes during the menstrual cycle, and then they basically group the LH FSH level to the ovarian cycle, and then they group the estrogen and progesterone level to the uterine cycle. But I group these 4 hormone into the hormonal cycle. So hormonal cycle is the study of these 4 hormones, the changes of these 4 hormones. That's okay. I mean, we will not talk about hormonal cycle in here. It's very complicated. In physiology, I'll talk about that, but not in here. Uterine cycle, 3 phases. Let's see if we will talk about this here. So, for the menstruation, this is like the uterine cycle. Menstruation, okay. The endometrium, uterine lining, the innermost uterine lining, constrict there by weakening the capillaries. So when the capillary is weakening, then it will detach. Yes, the endometrium will detach, and then therefore tissue, blood, and mucus, they will be lost as the menstrual flow. And usually lasts for 3 to 10 days. This is the menstrual phase. You can call it menstrual phase or menstruation just to be consistent. Menstrual phase. So what if you are pregnant? When you are pregnant, okay, of course the embryo begin, well, I wouldn't say the embryo, we don't call it embryo at this time. This is called zygote. This is called zygote. Embryo is much later. It should be called zygote. When the zygote, okay. So before the zygote implant to the uterus, we all call it zygote. After the zygote implant to the uterus, we start to call it embryo. Okay, embryo is after the zygote implant to the uterus. Then we start calling it the embryo. Embryos start to produce human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG. Whenever you see the word chorionic means placenta. HCG maintains corpus luteum, so the corpus luteum continue to secrete estrogen and progesterone. And the dipstick, pregnancy test dipstick that you buy from pharmacy, CVS, it tests for the level of HCG. So HCG level, if it is too early, you cannot detect it because you don't have the HCG production yet. Yeah, later the placenta will secrete estrogen and progesterone. In this case, after the placenta start to secrete it, then the corpus luteum can degenerate. So the function of progesterone and estrogen is prevent ovulation and maintain endometrium. Maintain endometrium meaning that we need to keep it thick, and also we need to keep the vasculation rich. We need to have a lot of blood supply there. So I'll give you the name. Okay, this is what I gave my physiology student. Okay, you know that sperm and egg, they will fertilize, become zygote. Formation of zygote, and then it will take approximately 6 to 7 days. And the zygote will continue to divide to become something called blastocyst. And then blastocyst after another 6 to 7 days. That means at the end of the second week. At the end of the second week of fertilization, then we call it embryo. Embryo is like when it implant to the uterus, when blastocyst implant to the uterus. In other words, I shouldn't call it a zygote. It should be called a blastocyst. And then after embryo, okay, from embryo and then approximately 8th week of pregnancy, then we call it a fetus. Why 8th week? Because around after 8th week of pregnancy, you have the placenta. Placenta develop at approximately in the 8th week. As long as you have placenta, then we call it fetus. So that is a proper way to name the different stages of your baby during pregnancy. So function of estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen, okay, maintain female secondary sex characteristics. For example, during pregnancy, women's breasts will further develop. They will get even bigger. Axillary and pubic hair. High estrogen level will induce more hair growth and also more subcutaneous fat deposition. Why I briefly mentioned that women usually have more body fat percentage than male because women need to store more nutrient to support the pregnancy. Wider pelvis. Wider pelvis is for holding the baby during pregnancy because baby carries a lot of weight, and wider pelvis is to support the baby development. And then progesterone also needed for breast development. Actually, high progesterone level helps to inhibit the contraction of the uterus. It is to prevent early contraction of the uterus. And it also forms a mucus plug. What do I mean by that? So we know that there's a mucus secretion around the cervix, vagina area. The mucus, they will become thicker, and also they may even dry up to become solid to form a physical solid plug at the cervix, at the opening of the uterus at the cervix, so that it can physically block further entry of the sperm into the uterus. And it also, most importantly, it block the physical entry of the bacteria, any bacteria, to go into the uterus to infect your baby. So yeah, progesterone. Also it also increase body temperature. So for female, they do the natural contraceptive method. They have to measure their daily body temperature, right? So what they do is that, when they measure that, today the body temperature increased 1 degree Celsius, then they will back count it for several days, maybe 3 days, then it is the, sorry about that. So women, they will measure their daily body temperature changes. If they measure that, okay, today my body temperature increased for 1 degree Celsius, then they will back count several days, and then they will determine, okay, that day was my ovulation. Then they will count, okay, which day is a safe period to have sex. The increase 1 degree Celsius of the body temperature is caused by progesterone. There is an increase in progesterone level after ovulation. So I mean several days after ovulation. So yeah, that causes the increase in body temperature. So progesterone has a lot of function, not just breast development, okay? Not just that, prevent early contraction of the uterus, so that when women they are pregnant, it is safe to have sex, because the progesterone level is high and it can prevent the early contraction of the uterus. Forms a mucus plug to stop any entry of the bacteria or sperm into the uterus, and increase body temperature. That's why during regular menstrual cycle, women can measure the changes of the body temperature for natural contraception. And also during pregnancy, the 9-month pregnancy, women, they feel very warm. The reason is that during pregnancy they have high level of progesterone during the 9-month pregnancy. That makes them feel very warm. Menopause, okay, around this age, 45 to 55.